Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all participants. It's my pleasure to welcome you to episode 33, Disaster Risk Reduction in the Digital Transformation Age, Leveraging Emerging Technologies. I'm Nakul Prasad, Project Officer at the World Meteorological Organization. I'm pleased to announce that this webinar forms a part of the ITU Digital Transformation webinar series. And on the occasion of the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction, this webinar will explore how modern technologies, including AI, IoT, digital twin, drones, and even the metaverse can support disaster management, specifically focusing on floods and droughts, with the view to creating a more resilient world for our future generations. But before we delve into the heart of our discussions, please take note of how the session will be run. To start with, I invite all participants to please indicate on the chat the city and the country you're connecting from. All questions from the audience will be taken during the Q&A session after the presentations. Participants can submit their questions by typing in the Q&A window, and this Q&A icon can be seen at the bottom of your screens. The webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be made available on the event website. The presentations will also be made available on the website. To begin today's webinar, I would like to pass the floor to Seizo Onoe-san, Director, Telecommunication Standardization Bureau of the International Telecommunication Union, for his opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, colleagues and friends. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our discussion today, and I thank you for joining us. Let me begin by thanking our co-organizer, WMO and UNCCD. We highly appreciate your support and have no doubt that our collaboration will continue to grow in strength. On this International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction, we reaffirm our commitment to ensure that our new technologies help us to protect communities from disasters and save lives when disasters strike. From year 2000 to 2019, over 7,000 major disasters were recorded, claiming over 1 million lives. Just last month, the devastating earthquake in Morocco killed nearly 3,000 people and injured over 5,000. New technologies must help us to better prepare, respond, and recover. ITU is one of the UN partners leading the new early warning for all initiative, together with UNDP, WMO, UNDRR, and IFRC. This initiative aims to ensure that early warning protect everyone on Earth by 2027. We see considerable potential for new technologies to support early warning. AI can analyze vast amounts of data in real time to provide more accurate forecasts and timely alerts. We can better understanding which areas will be hardest hit and gain precious time to prepare evacuation plans. In the aftermath of a disaster, AI-powered drones and robots can help us search for survivors, assess structural damage, and provide relief with medicines and food. Internet of Things technologies can drive can deliver key data, for example, by tracking water levels to detect the monitor floods. And these routines can help us run simulations of disaster scenarios to improve our understanding of how a city, our country could prepare and respond. Such simulations can also support critical data sharing and collaboration. These capabilities and many more are under study in our focus group on AI for natural disaster management. ITU supports this focus group together with WMO and UNEP. Another ITU focus group is working toward new standards for the metaverse, and today we will learn more about how the metaverse could support effective disaster management. I would also like to highlight that new ITU standards are under development to provide for submarine cables to be equipped with climate hazards monitoring sensors. The Envisage Ocean Observation Network could provide accurate early warning of tsunamis and wealth of valuable data for climate science. This standardization work is also the result of ITU collaboration with WMO. We are building on a minimum set of the requirements established by a joint task force on smart cable systems, launched in 2012 by ITU, WMO, and UNESCO IOC. Our discussions today will share expert insight on how we could best work together to tap into the full potential of new technologies to combat disasters. I thank you all very much for your contribution to these important discussions. We are gaining new opportunities to achieve safer, more inclusive, and more resilient societies. I look forward to our continued work together to ensure that we will full advantage of these opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Onoe-san, for those wonderful remarks. They set the stage for the presentations that we have up ahead. I would now like to pass the floor to Dr. Stefan Uhlenbruck, Director, Hydrology, Water and Cryosphere Branch of WMO.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all participants. I welcome you to this webinar on disaster risk reduction in the digital transformation age, leveraging emerging technologies, which is jointly organized by WMO, ITU and UNCCD. This webinar will explore an array of new technologies like artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, drones, digital twins, metaverse, etc., to help us to understand and manage disasters, water-related disasters, in particular floods and droughts, to understand them better, but also to develop predictive tools that enable us to manage them better, pursue better predictions. You know, just recently, this enormous flood event we had in Libya was a wake-up call for us. Normally, it shouldn't rain at all in Libya in the months of July, August, September. If there's some rain, then in the months, then it should be in November to March or so. However, to experience such an extreme rainfall event as we had it in early September this year, with more than 400 millimeters of rainfall in a single day, is really very, very difficult for us to observe, but for us to predict. Therefore, it is really necessary that we explore new technologies, new computing technologies, and also new observation technologies, helping us to understand these disasters and to predict them. The recent strides that were made in science and technology really have created new avenues for mitigating the adverse effects of such hazards, and therefore I'm very excited to listen to you later today. Unfortunately, you see, this is a recorded seminar. I'm traveling at the moment, and I'm only able to see this seminar after the speakers presented their interesting results. Finally, artificial intelligence can be used, for instance, to leverage flood management, to harness data, to develop new predictive forecasting tools. In this regard, the group on artificial intelligence for natural disaster management, which is jointly convened by ITU, WMO, and UNEP, that focus group is really working on a very relevant topic, and I'm excited to follow these discussions. Digital twins offer a very powerful tool to represent the physical environment in a digital environment that helps us to explore, to test, for instance, different response strategies and how they might impact the environment. Drones, metaverse, and many other things will be discussed during the seminar today. This is all in the context of the global initiative Early Warnings for All. As you probably know, the UN Secretary General came up with this challenge for us that in 5 years from now, it's only 4 years left actually, that everyone around the globe should be covered by an early warning system. And therefore WMO, ITU, UNDR, IFRC, and others really are mandated to bring this forward and work with a number of partners to make this very difficult challenge a reality. Today webinars couldn't have come at a more opportune time. We will listen to some of very distinguished panelists from across the globe. Some are my former colleagues and friends, so it's kind of exciting to see you later in the recording. And I also would like to thank ITU and UNCCD for joining WMO in this endeavor on this webinar, which I understand is done on the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. Finally, from WMO side, a big thank you to the moderator of today, Dr. Muali Tumarukudi. If I mispronounce your name, my apologies. And to all the other speakers for their contribution and to really advance this global dialogue on disaster management. Looking forward to a very enriching and a productive discussion ahead, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Stefan, for those remarks and for setting the stage on this International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. Now we move on to the keynote presentation, for which I would like to give the floor to Dr. Viren Kim, Head of Hydrological and Water Resources Services Division of WMO. Dr. Kim has been serving as the head of the Hydrological and Water Resources Services Division since 2019. And the division supports the enhancement of members' hydrological and water resources services by coordinating diverse projects and programs in this field. Dr. Kim, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Nakul. Thank you for having me here, especially to celebrate our International Disaster Risk Reduction Day and focus on the disaster risk reduction in the digital transformation age. I hope my presentation is not boring, make you feel a little bit more having the knowledge of what especially WMO is doing for the hydrology and water resources. The MC Nakul asked me a couple of times to not discuss or present too much detail on technical part, but rather than giving the more general information and make sure that everybody understands what I'm talking about, because the audience is not only from the hydrological services, but all around the world and having very much various different background and also knowledge. So I will try to make it a little bit simple and easy way, but feel free to ask any question and put the chat if you want to know more details and if you have any questions or comments. Next slide, please. I hope everybody heard about WMO. Next slide, please. The WMO is the UN specialized agency which was a successor to the International Meteorological Organization, created in 1873. So it's been already 150 years anniversary for us this year. But WMO, the name of the World Meteorological Organization, next slide please, was set up March 1950. And as you may know, the title of our organization, we are working for the meteorology, climatology, but also we focus on the hydrology and water resources part as well. So we have our member state and territories 193, supporting many focus on technical part. Next slide, please. You might have been seen this. Next slide, please. Disaster in numbers. Previous slide, thank you. Thank you. From the UNDRR, as you might see in the period of 2000 to 2019, over 7,000 major recorded disasters. In the right side, we see the flood and flash flood, 43.4%. And the middle of the left side in the drought, you can see, so both flood and drought is over the 50% of the disaster worldwide. And you could hear what Stefan mentioned just before about the Libya flood, but the flood happening almost everywhere, and drought make a lot of damage, and people are suffering because of the lack of the water, usable water. Next slide, please. So in WM, actually, we focus on the whole value chain. When we talk about the value chain, it's starting from the monitoring and collecting the data and observation. You have to know what is the status. So all kind of the technology is focused on the whole value chain, starting from the data collection and sharing. And we do have a hydrological modeling and forecasting to see that when, how much big and where will the flood will be happening or drought will be occur. So those are modeling forecasting what we are using a lot of technology, and also providing dissemination and reach out to the people so they can be evacuated or they can be prepared. So those kind of information really need to be reached out to the community and also stakeholders to reduce property damage and human losses as well. So in WMO, we do have many different initiatives, programs, and also systems to supporting our member states. And then we also receiving the user feedback and trying to make all the value chain in the right circle and properly supporting our member states, especially focus on the least developing country. But flood and drought is happening not only least developing country, but everywhere. So we really need to closely working together and supporting each other and looking for the new technology. Next slide, please. Make sure that having the good accuracy of the forecasting and analysis result. In WMO, we have 8 long-term ambitions in hydrology. Number 1 is no one is surprised by flood, and then the second is everyone is prepared for drought. But as you might see, there is water quality, water resources of the world, so we should know, and we are focusing on and targeting those 8 ambitions to be achieved. Next slide, please. There is some snapshot of hydrology initiatives in WMO. There are a lot of actually activities ongoing, but due to the limited of time that I got only 10 minutes, so I will briefly introduce to you what is the major initiatives. And there is also link is available. If you click the link, you could see the much more detailed information. And also feel free to reach out to us if you want to know more or if you want to contribute any kind of initiative activities. And there are a couple of things, including the performance of flow measurement or hydrometry support facility, which we call the Hydro Hub. In the many other regions, like I could see people from Pacific, people from Latin America. We have been working in the Hydro Hub initiative to reach out to you and using innovative method to enhance your current hydrometry observation and also data sharing. And we do have WHOS, WMO Hydrological Observation System, which have been working in the many areas, especially in the La Plata Basin recently, implement WHOS to having data sharing between them company and also government and other partners to be shared their hydrological data in real time. Next slide, please. We also have many other different initiatives. For example, one of the major initiatives is WMO flood forecasting initiative, as we are targeting of disaster risk reduction. And as I mentioned about flood and drought is more than 50% of disaster happening in the worldwide. So we are very much keen on the flood forecasting part. So under the flood forecasting initiative, we do have APFM, which is the name, the Associate Program on Flood Management with the WMO and Global Water Partnership has been working to support flood management and flood forecasting and others initiatives and activities. So it has been already 20 years. We recently celebrate our 20 years anniversary, and the Associate Program on Flood Management, APFM, is open for everyone. It's not only for the members, it's including our support-based partners from private, public entities. Everybody, we can make a very small agreement to supporting each other, and we do have a help desk. So anybody, even researcher, student, government, international organization, everybody is using our help desk to find good tools or methodology, guidelines. Also, we develop together with them with project proposal to make some implementation in the countries or in the region or in the basin. Recently, we are working with Volta Basin, so trying to make a flood and drought management system and also capacity. So those are APFM that you can find more detailed information. We also have IDMP, which is focused on integrated drought management program, drought management part. So this one has been already 10 years. We also celebrate 10 years anniversary as well. And focusing drought part, there's 4 pillars, the drought monitoring and drought support. So the IDMP also have a support-based partner who are working with us because WMO Secretariat, we have a very limited human resources, but with our partners, we can do much more than what we are able to do it. So both programs have been working with the GWP as a joint program, but having a lot of support-based partner with their in-kind contribution. And we have another big program, which is called FFGS, Fresh Flood Guidance System. It is supporting the National Hydrometeorological Services to have enough knowledge, capacity, but also the system and tool, robust system to predict and monitor the flash flood. It has been implemented already 72 members, and now it is expanding more and more. And we are also looking for the sustainability. So it is also one of our major initiatives supporting all our members and also having closely working with our partners, especially we do have a certain donors to supporting this implementation project from USAID and Cruz and World Bank has been closely working with us. Thank you. Next slide, please. I mentioned about drought and also flood, but you might also consider where is the available water, how much the status of the water availability, what about in the future? What about next semester? What about next season? What about next month? The decision maker should know about the proper information before they allocate water and be prepared about the situation. So in WMO, we do have a WMO Global Hydrological Status and Outlook System, which we call Hydro SOS. This system and program will contribute to the members to have knowledge and also having technology to be able to make a decision for the water resources assessment and for the water resources management. Very recently, our Congress 19 in May 2023, we have approved the National Hydro SOS Implementation Plan and also Regional Hydro SOS Implementation Plan. So in the country, we do have focal points from each members, and they see what the status of the country, what are the needs and gaps, and it gets to WMO and other possible other future partner to support them, how we can really fill the gaps and trying to make them to have enough capacity to make a decision. So that has been just approved it, and we have been working to make the real implementation project. And some of them are already started in Laos and Cambodia. And also we are working very closely with Lake Victoria and other regions. Soon, end of this month, we will have a meeting in Caribbean, Barbados, to develop Hydro SOS Caribbean regional implementation plan. Those will be directly reflected to the cruise project 2.0. So we are working with all around the world, try to make a really good achievement and having the action, not just talking, developing manuals and providing you technical support, but through the project also we are having the direct support. Next slide, please. I have mentioned a couple of times that capacity building is really important, not just to set up the system and providing the tools, but making our members to having their own capacity to continue to starting the hydrological forecasting or services. The main part is capacity building. WMO do have a lot of capacity building program, including distance learning courses. And also we have a couple of hands-on training as well. So those are really also, we are very keen on this because that is giving the members do it by themselves in the future as well, even though some of the project has been stopped or without any kind of contribution from outside or partner. But if members, if the authorities or agencies do have their own experts and have a capacity, they can continue to work on that and making some improvement by themselves. So we are expecting that through our capacity building program, that we can have much more than just having the project or manual guidelines. Thank you. Next slide, please. As this is part of the this seminar topic, so we're trying to gather some of information, especially for the emerging technology. As you might see here, that we are working with many private public authorities as well, which I mentioned about APFM, IDMP support-based partner, because support-based partner is not limited only public, but it's also private and also academia. All the partners can be join us to our program, working together. And very recently, we have working with piloting AI-based fraud forecasting with some of the colleagues. So we will target some of the sample bases and trying to see how the current AI fraud forecasting model can be helpful and comparing with the traditional hydrological modeling that is ongoing. And also, as I mentioned earlier about the HydroHub, that there is some innovation calls that we are looking for the new technology, emerging technology, what can be not so expensive but useful for our hydrological services. So we have been working with the innovation core, and we also launched the research core for proposals, and especially in that research core, we could having some use of drones for hydrometry and rating curve and riverbed profile. All kind of hydrological monitoring observation part can be used by drone and other emerging technology instead of the humans or staff's time, that we can use many other technology with with limited time and limited budget. And we also a lot working with IoT, the sensors, especially focused on the urban services and those emerging technologies. Not only limited this, because we have much more technology than more than this, like 3D pose. As you might know, that there's quite a bit costly to set up the new stations and having the measurement facilities. So really using the 3D printings that we can make a little bit easier and also within the very small budget. So those are also one of our projects that we have been implemented in several countries, and also keep working on this, make it useful for many other places. Next slide, please. Stefan also already mentioned about early warning for all initiatives, so I'm not going to repeat everything again. But as you can see here, WMO, ITU, WMO focused on pillar 2, which is observation and forecasting part, while ITU is focused on dissemination and communication with their technical background and technical knowledge. So as you might see here, UNDRR and IFRC is also supporting all the pillars to make sure that everywhere, all around the world, can have early warning, and so can reduce flood, drought, any other natural disaster damage can be reduced with early warning system and early warning services. The last slide, next slide, please. Yesterday, WMO just launched our annual report, which we started last year. So this is our second report, State of Global Water Resources 2022. You can just Google WMO State of Global Water Resources. Then you can download everything freely available. And in that report, you might see a lot of information, especially for the river discharge. And we have used a lot of global hydrological model to see what will be in the future, the situation, and what about the flow, how it will be above normal or it will be below normal. Those analyses you can see in this report, this annual report, and also in that I captured here that you can see that 2022, what was the severe drought or flood hazard happened in the country or in the region. You might see those information more detail in the report. And in the right side bottom, you can see the global water trends in 2022. We have in-shoot data, the local data, we combine with the satellite data and other technology with the global modeling partners who providing their outcomes as in-kind contribution. And I believe that in the next year, we will have more in-shoot data, more information to be able to share all of you. And this will be also helpful to see that how in the situation, of course, this year, maybe in the 2022, you could see the really severe flood like in the Pakistan. And I'm sure that as Stefan mentioned earlier, the Libya flood will be captured in 2023. But not only the one or two specific country, but all around the world, there is a severe flood and drought will be captured and presented in our report. And also some of the cross-sphere issues and also river discharge and also groundwater and other hydrological information will be captured in our report. And this is also freely available. That's it from my side. And I think I'm make a 10-minute presentation and looking for your comments, suggestions, and questions. Thank you. Back to you, Nakul.
Thank you, Dr. Kim, for that very comprehensive presentation introducing the audience to WMO's activities on hydrology and water resources. I would like to once again encourage the audience to type any of your questions that you have, and our panelists will do their best. Please do so using the Q&A chat for your questions. So we have a fantastic lineup of panelists for this webinar. And now we will move on to session 1. And for this, it's my privilege to give the floor to the moderator, Dr. Murli Tumarugudi, G20 Initiative Coordination Office Director, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. As an internationally renowned expert in disaster response, Dr. Murli has been involved in post-disaster response and follow-up of almost all major disasters of the 21st century. So, over to you.
Thank you, Nakul. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to those who have joined this session. I can see more than 370 people have joined from around the world. So let me start by greeting on the International Day of Disaster Reduction. Having worked in almost all of the disasters of the 21st century, I know how important disaster risk reduction is as against disaster response. Disaster response is more glamorous, and disaster reduction is thankless job. Yet, disaster reduction saves lives. So it is absolutely important that the world invest more time and energy on disaster risk reduction. And I'm extremely glad to see that WMO have very interesting activities ongoing, both in terms of technology, but also capacity building for disaster risk reduction. I was looking at the slides of Dr. Kim, and I was stunned to note that 92% of all disasters are hydrometeorological. So she already mentioned that between floods and drought is more than 50%. But if you add extreme temperature and storms, then you take it up to more than 90%. These are all linked to climate change in a way. So you can see how climate change is changing the landscape of extreme events. Today, I have a very interesting panel to present to the audience, and my challenge will be to keep the time. We are already slightly behind schedule, so I would request to my panelists if they can keep to 10 minutes instead of the 12 we planned, so that we have the time needed for question and answers, because we have, as I said, more than 300 participants. Already questions are coming, so let's have some time. Our first speaker of the day is Dr. Elena Soplaski. I may have spelled her name wrongly, but she is a senior scientist and acting head of climatology, climate dynamics, and climate change research group at the Justus Liebig University in Germany. She is also the vice chair of the ITU focus group on AI for natural disaster management, where I had opportunity to work with her. Elena, you have the floor, and I'll ping at 9 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Murali, thank you very much for this nice introduction. Let me please share my screen. First of all, is everything fine? Can you see my screen? Is
yes.
Work? Wonderful. So first of all, it's a great honor being here with you, and I'm going to use I will try to be as fast as possible to actually trying to introduce you our focus group on AI for natural disaster management and its activities actually to support disaster risk reduction. The next slides, I'm going to give also some information about the different activities in natural hazards management and early warning systems. So let me see why. Okay, good. Human-induced climate change is causing more frequent and intense extreme weather and climate events. The result is widespread adverse impacts and related losses and damages to nature, society, and economy, where the impacts of the extreme events of summer 2023 in the greater Mediterranean area and the world are timely examples. The impacts of natural hazards are exacerbated in certain regions and for certain parts of the populations. They are also expected to worsen due to population growth, rapid urban development, and the growing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events and cascading effects. Through advances in AI-based algorithms, the growth in computational power, and the emergence of large and many times publicly available datasets, there has been an increase in the use of data and AI-driven approaches to solve tasks in many fields. But this, of course, is raising some questions. Can we leverage AI to improve our understanding of natural hazards, our ability to detect events in real time, our ability to forecast events, and our ability to effectively communicate an impending or ongoing disaster? Can we save lives using these new technologies? And which are these best practices when using AI? And what are the limitations of those? So to address these questions, we do need to consider what is occurring in the different stages of the AI lifecycle for this application. And the AI lifecycle ranges from the data collection to model development through model deployment. And these are the stages which are exactly the main components of the focus group structure upon which its research deliverables and outputs are built. The focus group is based at the International Telecommunications Union and has an official partnership with the World Meteorological Organization and UN Environment. It supports the efforts of the associated IDUD study group and provides a working environment for pre-standardization or standardization activities. Initiated in March 2021, the focus group has built a continuously growing community of experts and stakeholders and aims at exploring the potential and limitations of artificial intelligence and machine learning in understanding of natural hazards, in the detection of events in real time, in the ability to forecast events, and the effective communication during ongoing disasters. The focus group has developed in this way in a multi-tiered structure. The topic groups are clusters of experts exploring how AI is being used for a specific application and natural hazard, which is actually making 27 use cases which are clustered in these topic groups. There are the 3 working groups in the colorful tiles which are dedicated to drafting the 3 technical reports, and they digest the output of the topic groups, surveys of bodies of literature, and connect with experts to address these overarching questions that the focus group is looking at. In addition, there is a working group that developed our roadmap, a working group that is producing educational materials, a work stream that produced our glossary, and a work stream that developed a search engine tool that can find relevant literature and online tools that can be used for this application. The focus group, as can be seen, covers several and diverse hazards from floods and wildfires to insect flood monitoring and vector-borne diseases. Interestingly, a large amount of the Interestingly, among all those hazards, in a literature review that we made for the period 2018 to 2022, we found that floods are one of the most common hazards being handled with AI. Within our topic group, floods, we look at how AI can detect floods upstream through in situ sensor networks in Mexico, flood reconstruction using AI for satellite-derived optical imagery that is obscured by cloud cover, and buoy-based storm surge detection with AI. When we are looking into the leadership of the focus group, we have our chair, Monique Kuglic, and vice chairs from the UN partners, academia, and relevant organizations. Since 2021, the initiation, the focus group has already been able to advance on many of its deliverables, has organized education activities and events, has organized workshops and webinars, and of course, scientific publications, as on the use of AI in natural disaster management, and the use of AI on for disaster risk reduction, as well as in the availability and quality of data that can be used and should be used by AI for disaster risk reduction. I'm sorry, it is a little bit slow. Okay, so the focus group has entered its last year. And now we are looking and planning the future. The way forward for the focus group is to upscale and extend the mandate and establish a so-called global initiative. So in the next years, what is this global initiative doing? It's taking up and continues and upscales the activities of the focus group with strong standardization, harmonization, and implementation pillars. It does continue standardization. It does continue filling the gaps in science and by targeted research. It does continue fostering education and builds upon previous experience and partners with key developers. It also supports the UN's Early Warnings for All initiative developing AI-based early warning systems for the most vulnerable regions and climate change hotspots in the initial countries of the initiative. And among those activities, and directly connected to the Early Warnings for All initiative, is the Horizon Europe Medusa project, which is based on AI to create a scalable early warning system over the greater Europe, Mediterranean, Northern African areas. The Medusa project is coordinated by the WMO and its Science and Innovation Department. Losses and damages caused by extreme events and natural hazards is a topic of increasingly governmental focus with enormous costs. Emergency responses are thus becoming more protracted, expensive, and frequent, stretching limited available resources. In support of these challenges and needs, Medusa offers multi-hazard capacity building for emergency responders, timely handling of unexpected cascading effects, efficient response mechanisms to extreme events, and is fully addressing the early warning cycle from data and models to public safety. And that in order to enhance resilience and reduce the increasingly dramatic impact of extreme weather events, natural hazards, and disasters in a densely populated, economically vital, and rapidly warming region. How are we doing this? We are based on 8 selected pilot sites, and we're using areas and regions and countries from Europe, the Southern Mediterranean, and Northern Africa with a history of being impacted by natural hazards and extreme events with cascading effects. These pilot sites...
You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, I'm on the way. So the pilot sites can be coupled to form 4 twins, and these twins bridge areas with different climatic and physiographic conditions. However, they are facing similar hazardous events and are perfectly positioned to deliver meaningful and long-term knowledge transfer and exchange of best practices. So Medusa is offering hazard information and risk analysis for meaningful early warning that allows governments, communities, and individuals to understand risks related to impending events and to act to minimizing impacts. It's contributing to impact-based forecasting. It develops a fully integrated, impact-based, multi-hazard early warning system. It is based on AI, and it's creating an AI-based decision support solution for improved impact detection, and actually demonstrating how the WMO research is leading efforts to extend early warning systems to vulnerable and underserved regions and communities. And this is what Medusa and the focus group are in this respect offering to them and to the Early Warnings for All initiative. So what we do, we have a coordinated, integrated, multi-hazard system, which is covering the entire early warning process. It's built on existing systems and tools, leveraging cross-cutting technologies where they bring added value in the 4 pillars. It connects a broad geographical region. It includes an early warnings for all priority country and works closely with local stakeholders to ensure the sustainability of the project. It is bridging the private sector, research organizations, local stakeholders, first responders to support the development of an effective and tailored early warning system. And with that, I would like to thank you very much for your attention and inviting you to go through this QR code and receive more information from what we are doing in the frame of the focus group. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elena, for that fascinating presentation. We can see that we have already come a long way in terms of using AI, but as you know, AI is still in its early childhood, so there is still a lot of opportunities emerging. With that, I will move to Mr. Mohammed Nasir, who is a senior applied research scientist at Microsoft in New York. And he will now talk about the work that Microsoft is doing. Nasir, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Murli. Let me start with sharing my screen. Okay, hope you are able to see the screen properly. Hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll be taking the context of my previous speaker on how AI could be used for different disaster management tasks, and take a particular case study on a project in India called Project Sunny Lives. And the topic of the presentation would be dwelling type classification and risk assessment for disaster vulnerability using satellite imagery. But before I deep dive into the details of the project itself, I'd like to thank our collaborator Seeds, which is a non-profit in India, with whom we actually, without whom the project would be completely impossible. And I'll also start taking an opportunity to introduce our team at Microsoft called AI for Good Lab. So we are a group of researchers consisting of data scientists, economists, and data storytellers spanning across 4 continents. And our goal is to use AI and data science to address some of the biggest challenges of the world of current time. And we have worked on about more than 200 projects and published more than 100 research papers since our inception 5 years ago. And we usually work with different kind of subject matter experts, such as different nonprofits, academia, and government agencies, because the expertise we bring in is from the AI and data science and statistics and machine learning modeling and stuff like that. But we don't have any expertise on much expertise on the domain knowledge that we specifically require for working on these projects. That's why we collaborate with different kind of subject matter experts. And to give you a few examples of the kind of work we do, we have worked on climate change tracking, such as analyzing melting glaciers, and also the theme of today's webinar, disaster response and preparedness, early warning system, and also damage assessment after the disaster happens, as well as different biodiversity projects, such as using wildlife camera, as well as audio to monitor a species decline. As well, and we also worked on different kind of exploration of renewable development. And we also try to work on different humanitarian action projects to support vulnerable communities all over the world. We also work on different medical imaging systems and public health crises such as COVID-19. And we also work on different kind of addressing digital inequality in underserved communities, specifically in Global South and different other communities all over the world. So more about the particular project of Sunny Lives. So this project, as I mentioned, is based in India with support from nonprofit called Seeds, which work toward building disaster resilience in low-income areas. And as we know, India is among one of those countries which get affected by disaster a lot. It actually ranks 5th, like based on a particular study by weather-related disasters all over the world. And just to flood, over 2 million houses are lost every year. Most of these houses are like not covered by insurance, and they do belong to the economically weaker sections of the society. So it's a very big challenge, and a lot of economic as well as humanitarian loss towards these people. So our aim is to try to support this particular problem of the society, and how machine learning or data science or AI can help to this particular problem. So we are focusing on a particular characteristic of this crisis, which is looking at the vulnerability of different kind of buildings or dwellings, and trying to assess how much risk they pose to an upcoming flood. And we have found out that the dwellings or the buildings itself are, if we can classify them using the roof type, it could be a good proxy for the construction material and the resilience of the dwelling itself. For example, if we have a building that is made of very weaker material, like very much weaker material, it will not be as resilient as say a concrete building, which does not have that much risk to flood for damage. But if we want to classify these buildings based on the dwellings, the ground survey where people actually go to these buildings and annotate them, it could be very time consuming and it is not scalable at all. So if we use machine learning model using some satellite imagery, satellite overhead imagery, and we try to automatically classify buildings over much larger region, that is a very much better solution in terms of early warning systems as well as a better preparedness for the disaster. For this goal, we have identified certain, we can identify certain dwelling locations and their roof type, and then we can use that information for a risk assessment model, which could be building level as well as zonal level. So the data set we had collected was based on satellite imageries from our partnership with Maxar, which is a satellite imagery company. And we got 50 centimeter resolution RGB data, which has 3 different color bands, of course. And we specifically chose 2 areas of interest in India. One from both are in the coastal region of India, one from Puri, the coastal town of Puri, which is in the eastern side, as well as from the city of Mumbai, that it also includes the largest, one of the largest slums in Asia called Dharavi. So we collected the imagery from these 2 regions, and you can see the 2 sample imagery from these 2 regions. The data set, after we collected the satellite imagery, all the dwelling footprints were identified, and more than 14,000 dwellings from these identified regions were annotated and classified into 7 categories. As you can see, there are tarpaulin, there are reinforced cement concrete, there are galvanized iron, corrugated galvanized iron, and we also distinguished them based on how many slopes they have, because the number of slopes can affect their resilience towards flood as well. And we also had 2 additional types. One, when the annotators could not find a clear roof, or if they could not, even if there's like, and even in some cases, there's no even not a clear structure at all. So these 2 specific cases, we cannot predict something, but it is still like we can predict a score, but this still identifying those as opposed to a clear building type was necessary. And you can see also a distribution of different types of building footprints, and the distribution is pretty skewed, making the task more challenging for an automated machine learning pipeline. So this is the machine learning architecture model that we used. So the task in machine learning language is called semantic segmentation, where we are using satellite imagery to identify different kind of building footprints. And we are doing a 8-way pixel level classification, which is basically identifying either one of those 7 dwelling types or the points or the pixels that actually do not represent any buildings, rather which is basically the background itself. So with these 8 classes, you trained a model that could identify what a particular pixel belonged to, whether it's one of those dwellings or it is not a building. And this deep learning architecture, as you can see in a semantic diagram, I'm not going into the details, but it's a model that can be trained using the data that we had collected and mentioned earlier, and it could be used in production as well. And we explored multiple different type of architectures, but the one that worked the best for our particular case is called Turnhouse-Nate, which is modified.
2 minutes.
Okay, thanks for the reminder. It's called Turnhouse-Nate, and that's the one that works the best. And these are some example results. On the left side, you see the predicted level that our model predicted. And at the right, you have the input imagery, and this was used to predict the one on the left. And in the middle, you can see the ground truth that we tried to achieve. And different colors represent different type of houses. these are another set of example outputs. As you can see, some of these buildings are very clustered and very difficult to identify even with our eyes, by human eyes. But machine learning models do a decent job, even though the shape of the buildings are not perfect, but we still were able to identify the building types most of the time accurately, which was pretty challenging. And once we have this building footprints, we used other input data such as elevation data, water bodies, and other geographical information to finally predict two different types of outputs. One was the risk zonal based on different output, what a particular zone, how much risk that pose, and also for each buildings, what is the risk level. So we have two different outputs. One is zonal level as well as building footprint level. And each of these were reclassified and scaled into a risk score from 1 to 5, where 1 means the lowest risk and 5 means the highest risk. And we can see an example here how an output looks like for different zones. So the blue color in this map basically represents the regions which have high risk zone where the score is 3 or above, taken from a region in northern Kerala in India. And this model was deployed in December 2020 in 2 regions, one for Cyclone Burevi in northern Kerala, and another one was Cyclone Nivar in Tamil Nadu. And after these disasters happened, a small subsets of houses were actually surveyed, and we found out that more than 80% cases, our model was accurate to assess the risk level. And for the impact of this work, earlier we had a set of disconnected information such as weather forecast, water release information, and so on. But we didn't have a holistic idea of how much a particular region is, how much risk that have for a particular flood risk, in upcoming flood or so on. But now we have a risk map that could be used for different disaster management tasks. For example, in short term, we can actually use this for evacuation and allocation of resources, and also to minimize the loss and provide relief.
Nasir, I need to request you to conclude, please.
Yes, I have one more slide. Thanks. Sorry about that. And in the long term, the goal is to identify vulnerable regions and work towards risk reduction by making more stronger buildings, as well as improving the water and sanitation management of the area to reduce the risk. And finally, we can actually improve the model by improving the dwelling type classification through different architectures, as well as new data collection. And this model could be also used in different kind of other regions, for example, rural areas, because our model was only used for urban landscape so far mostly. And similar approaches can be extended to other disasters such as earthquake and extreme heat wave as well. Thank you so much, and I'm really glad to and grateful for this opportunity to speak. Thanks a lot, organizers, and thanks for listening. Thank you so much.
So, Mr. Nasir, I would now request Dr. Giriraj Amarnath, who is the Principal Researcher, Disaster Risk Management and Climate Resilience Research Group at the International Water Management Institute, Sri Lanka. You have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Murli. Hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah. And thank you. Indeed, it's a great opportunity from ITU and WMO and all the other partners for giving opportunities to reflect on the work International Water Management Institute has been leading for more than a decade on some of the frontier technologies for better risk management. And given the coincidence of today, DRR Day, I think it's a very pertinent for our participants and experts to look at how we address these technologies, because still there are issues in silos then technologies can certainly leverage, and it's a very important and timely webinar being organized by all the partners here. So I would skip this slide. So specifically, I just want to reflect on why these technologies are important, crucially. I think excellent presentation from WMO on reflecting the water-related hazards. And then I'm more focusing on countries like Africa here, while I know there is a global participation of worldwide from participants across the world attending, but the focus has been on Africa and Asia for us. And I think technologies need to summarize very clearly to the policymakers what decisions need to be made, not only at the national level, but also at the international level when climate changes, uncertainties are significant over the years. And then these technologies are very important, whether we call remote sensing, GIS, or drone. And the previous speakers have provided a wide range of technologies already. And these scoring index are very, very important for policymakers to look at two levels. One, strengthening the national adaptation planning, and also the global commitments of the SDG, Sendai framework, and as well as the Paris climate change. And then addressing these vulnerable population, that is where the digital technologies can certainly leverage in these regions. Countries like Africa, importantly, other continents do have similar problems. I just highlighted the context of how technologies are relevant here. And I think while various speakers have spoken about in terms of the wide range of technology already exists and case studies have been developed, but still, if you look at technology specifically in disaster management, is still often underappreciated for various reasons, where you see a diverse stakeholders are working here. Unlike when you look at in software technologies in corporate or many other systems where technologies are quite adaptable, when we talk about financial softwares or when you talk about, for example, the softwares like Microsoft that was presented. And when you look at problems on the humankind and also the technologies that needed still, it is still not widely appreciated, but there is reasons to look at how we look at all phases of disaster management. While most focus has been on preparedness, still the technologies have limited scope in recovery, mitigation measures, and responses. So I think we carefully need to look at, while Dr. Stefan has spoken about the global initiatives, early warning for all, and many other initiatives that are emerging, we need to comprehensively look at all phases of risk management cycle from preparedness to response. So I would highlight not all phases of the solutions we have developed given the limited time, but let's speak on some of the technologies that we have been speaking on. One, we look at wide range of remote sensing, which is prerequisites to look at areas where there is a significant data scarce regions. You need to also collect a lot of citizen science data where you need kind of a smart tech. And today, a lot of tech-enabled cloud services have played an important role. And often the data collections have been over the years have been significantly improved, I would say. And now we have a lot of digital survey that allows data analyticals and also the modeling systems to improve. You will be seeing some of our examples from Senegal. And when we talk about integration of all the solutions, you would come with new opportunities to understand and analyze disaster risk management more closely by working with communities, bringing the silos in the institutions to get broken very clearly by working together with ministries, NGOs, and partnership. And important is to look at also the sustainable applications that will come out of these engagement, which is because at the core of sustainability, affordability, and also making sure that it is relevant and consistent over the years. So you can look at how it becomes relevant to agriculture, shared co-benefits of the entire value chain, whether it is on economic growth of reducing the damages and the exposure that the each extremes are going to happen each year in the future as well. So technologies can leverage some of these opportunities very clearly. And while I just jump into some solutions where if you look at communities like this, they are moving when there is an extreme flood event, an example of floods that happened in Pakistan last year and even before in 2020 and 2010, it really shows how communities are underlined with the importance of data that is very fundamental, and applications like index-based flood insurance. We are working for many years where alternative data sets are important because you cannot define vulnerable population with the kind of risk data. And often reinsurer and insurance need very credible climate risk catastrophic models, and often that doesn't exist in many regions. So we have come up with a kind of a model that looks at how we come up with emerging technologies here. So we build some of the AI-based prediction models in flood forecasting and early warning. Like many global platforms already exist when it comes to providing a 3 weeks advanced lead period like GloFast, GeoGlows, and many other systems, which obviously need to be customized to the national need when it comes to data sharing as well, so that these global models are more applicable to the national need. And then you could certainly provide a flood alerts to those regions. And then not just having a flood alert, because the huge data that is coming out from this technology can provide not just the alert, but also translating into emergency map, like the previous colleague spoken on the Microsoft mapping the flooded area, and also translating those flooded areas into more climate investments, planning, and future prioritization. That also need additional infrastructure need to be developed across a range of partners. And also the risk financing is very critical. And that is where we look at these data that are coming from the primary data of the AI models, from risk mapping, risk detection, and prediction. It's a very collective data in which one could look at, not just looking in a silo pieces of meal. That's where we are aiming to address here. And this is where these novel solutions were recognized by GEO, Group of Earth Observation, in 2020 as one of the SDG innovations in coming to Climate Action 13. What we have done is a village level parametric product was developed using remote sensing, IoT sensors that provides water level data. And importantly, the communities, the school teachers are reporting this data on a regular basis in terms of rural areas where you may not have access to water level sensors, where you could come with staff gauge readers to communities to provide. So important is to bring leveraging the citizen science data. We have tested with several countries in several districts in South Asia, and it has shown how insurance companies also believe such inclusive data collection and also the collective modeling systems provided a payout over 150,000 US dollar. And we would put that in the chat link with more information for your additional reading. The other form of data that was also presented by WMO is the Integrated Drought Management Program, which is IMI is also part of the partner there. We have come up with the South Asia Drought Management System, which is again a comprehensive systems that comes with weather forecast models. When you talk about weather forecast, that's again a full breed of machine learning models you have to develop, how to improve the forecasting skills. And then in the drought prediction, you are running a large models, then you need to use cloud technologies, a powerful grid models that will help us to provide reliable drought prediction for the next couple of weeks. And drought monitoring, you get daily satellites. So you also need to have quite a good machine learning capabilities to predict the drought, its severity, its extent and severity. And importantly, we also bring plans that are digitalized. That comes with a lot of localization of data collection. And if you look at all this, where
Giriraj, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Leveraging these technologies is very, very critical going forward. So we again have this barcode available for you to learn around these tools here. So in summary, these AI-based tools have been supported for us over years in terms of developing automated contingency measure, because each stakeholders need a different kind of an information, ranging from farmers to financial institution. So we developed these tools now under the National Drought Mitigation Program in India now, and more to become under the NDMA that is implementing this wide national level program in the Southern Financial Commission going forward. Just briefly on the health risk, I would take a minute here to update what we are trying to do here. One of the current gaps and challenges in early warning to early action is data and information gap, which has been spoken around. Leveraging the access is very important, how we communicate these barriers. The risk public awareness is still needed. There is a need of better communicating this information in a different languages. Resource constraints are there, and the governance and coordination challenges are very critical. So I would skip this part, but basically want to highlight these platform that we developed called Aware Platform, which was just launched for a few countries in Africa.
I have to request you to conclude.
So this is the Aware Platform that uses a wide range of machine learning models, and what that led to predicting these malaria models using a machine learning approach with a lead time of provincial government, how in Senegal government is utilizing this system. And my last slide is on the digital twin. While I don't see much time is available for this particular focus, because this is where the future technology is going to lead in the coming years. So I'll stop here. Thank you again for giving this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Giriraj. It was absolutely interesting presentation and everyone has a lot to say. But to be fair to other participants, also the audience, I need to exercise my control on this. That brings me to Cameron Schell, who is the co-founder and Chief Executive Officer of Dragonfly Innovations in United States. Cameron, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody who's attending here today for the opportunity to present and be a part of such an esteemed organization. My name is Cameron Schell, and I'm lucky enough to be co-founder and CEO of an organization, a company called Dragonfly. We've been doing search and rescue and disaster response with drones for about 25 years. And in fact, in 2013, a Dragonfly drone was the first drone that was credited with saving a human life. And today that drone, which was part of a search and rescue mission, and today that drone sits on permanent display in the Smithsonian. So today there's, I'll just do a screen share here, one quick sec. Today, I'll just I'll talk about some of the practical, hands-on, kind of boots on the ground work that we've been doing in the recent year. So just want to touch base on some applications that we've been doing specifically with floods, also with survivor search, mapping and surveying, and also wildfire management. And so I'll just briefly talk about a few of these things. So recently we were called into action in a significantly flooded area in Europe. And this was a rapid flood situation. The characteristics of this flood was really, it was more about emergency response. And surprisingly, what we find almost in every situation that we go into that's an emergency response or a disaster response scenario is that the mission that we go in to do ends up almost not being secondary, but there's a number of other realizations that happen when we use the drone that, oh my gosh, this is how we best want to use the mission. So in this particular mission, we were actually called in because this particular area that was flooded had a significant landmine presence in it. And as the floodwaters were coming into the area, landmines that were pervasive throughout the area were actually being moved. And so we were trying to get a sense of where we needed to move certain crews that were doing demining operations and or where the floodwaters were heading so that we could get a sense of maybe where these mines would shift. But what quickly we ended up responding to in this particular case was more things like rooftop spotting. And so this was not part of the mission profile at all. And there were not other drone crews in the area that were contemplating doing this. But we ended up spending days literally identifying people on roofs, determining if what their health condition were, helping rescuers get to them, provide guidance to find them, but also helping them triage. So, they were doing things like holding up signs or giving us hand signals or such to say, hey, how much of an emergency are you in? Can you hold off for a half a day? Do you have water supplies? Do you have food? Do you have somebody injured with you? Those types of things so that we could actually end up doing the triage work. And this is not the first time, but this is becoming much more prevalent in the disaster work that we're doing. And in fact, we're now building out communication systems, to address this very specific need, which I'll show you here in just a minute. So again, super honored to be on this panel with so many esteemed people that that understand the sciences and the AI and the data. And so hopefully what we'll be able to present here, and maybe even create some collaboration, is along the practical natures of how we're applying drones and people that are on site to be able to respond to these disasters. The great thing about drones in particular is that they can carry incredible sensors. And so I've been very fortunate to do some work with satellite imagery. But what we're finding now is that we can put drones like this one here pictured, literally, 10 feet, 100 feet, 50 feet, 200 feet, above a devastated area, and pull in data that's incredibly detailed and is real-time data as well. So thermals are everybody's aware of thermal cameras. But thermals are really becoming, just kind of like standard equipment. Surprisingly, RGB cameras are still, provide the most amount of data that you need in an emergency live situation. But when you've got thermals involved, you're also able to do actual survivor searches. So we've done survival searches in collapsed buildings, earthquake scenarios, live situations where people have been found and saved, where nobody was even aware that that somebody was maybe buried in that rubble. And so it is a bit of it's a science for sure, but it's also a bit of an art to understand the different signatures that come from thermal cameras, because as you can see here, there's a lot of thermal activity in a particular area, and so you need to get your drones in close in order to be able to pick up the definition of or the hot spots of concrete that might be hot because of sun or because of friction or any number of things. And then how do you determine if a signature in there is actually a human? They rarely, you see this image here of a potential victim that it never comes out that clear. You're always looking for other smaller signatures that might indicate that you've got human presence there, but rarely do you get a scenario where it's just a perfect outline of a body and it's obvious. But this is something that's really important. Now, the other thing that's really cool about this is that as you're doing this type of work, you're also picking up all kinds of other data. And so when you've got people looking at this, and though we might be looking for survivors in an earthquake scenario, this thermal activity is really important to take a look at for the scientists. So we might be flying the same area at 2 or 3 different times a day because you get those different thermal signatures. And so, and in doing that, there's all kinds of other, everything from structural to maybe pooled water to, other life forms or other organics that are around the area that give you indication as to, maybe what is the current situation that you're dealing with, and, maybe what helped cause the collapse, or, what's additional information that you need to provide to your first responders that are in that particular area. So also the mapping and the survey work is incredibly important here. And actually, I'm just going to take it here. So this is a bit about wildfire, but this actually really applies ahead of time into the flood areas as well. So again, not talking here about a brand new technology at all, but LiDAR mapping is becoming increasingly important, for all areas pre a potential disaster. And again, typically LiDAR mapping previously with high resolution LiDAR, you needed aircraft and really big power sources in order to get detailed LiDAR. And we're now flying missions with drones that allow us to take, millimeter type of resolution into these areas, and getting this mapping done ahead of time is incredibly important. It's a matter of years before the entire globe is completely and pervasively and on an ongoing basis being LiDAR mapped. And we're getting to the spot where it's becoming quite inexpensive to do it, because you can put up these drones with really, really sophisticated LiDAR on it. And when you do that, being able to, and where this was going is that you'll be able to then overlay your past LiDAR map on top of, real-time LiDAR that you're generating as you're in a disaster response.
You have 2 minutes.
Excellent, thank you. So this is important also as it relates to wildfire management. So this year, actually in particular in Canada, we responded and we're doing a lot of hotspotting work with wildfire management. One of the things I did touch on earlier that I just wanted to mention here is when we were talking about the rooftop spotting, we actually worked with a partner called Promo Drone, and we've developed this particular drone application here where we can actually do live communication back and forth with people that are in wildfire situations or rooftop situations. They may or may not be able to communicate, so we can actually send them messages. We can provide emergency cellular communication on this unit. And so these are the types of things that that drones are being practically used for. And I think probably the biggest thing I wanted to maybe just leave everybody with here is that drones and drone usage in organizations like us, it used to be, like stuff of science fiction where we would think about, oh, how are we going to use drones in these particular areas? Now there's hardly a disaster response that's happening where drones aren't being pulled in. And so again, we flew drones this summer in a number of wildfire situations in Canada. And what was really interesting here is we went in, we were going to do nighttime missions, which we did, to look at where the hotspots were and underneath the ground where there might be root system fires. But where we actually found that some of our biggest value was actually being able to determine weather patterns, micro weather patterns, which really help determine where those fires might be jumping to. So the applications for drones and the ability for us to respond with technology and data collection is really, really accelerating. So I thank you everybody for your time today and look forward to any questions.
Thank you, Cameron. Drones are indeed becoming integral part of all disaster response. That brings us to an exciting session on metaverse from Teppo Rantanen, who is Executive Director at Tampere City in charge of innovation. You have the floor.
Thank you, and let me share my screen and see if it comes out in a good way. Can you see my screen now?
Not yet, but coming. Yes, thank you.
Perfect. So let me just introduce you a little bit of the topic of metaverse and how that will actually play into the whole area of looking at how we can go better with the disasters. And we have been running through a very interesting project here in Tampere on looking at how new technologies can help the city in multiple ways. And metaverse is our sort of a topic we are looking into. And as in the previous discussions or presentations, we had a lot about those particular technologies that actually forming part of the metaverse. But if we just lead into a little bit of introduction to where we are, Tampere is in Finland. It's the second largest city region in Finland. And by the way, it's the most attractive city in Finland, which means that we are in part of the happiest country in the world, which makes us a pretty good place to be. We have been working on developing our way of running the city and running its different aspects basically with a couple of ideas in our mind. So we have been developing our city for our people, for the citizens, and how the city can be driven by data and AI. And those has been sort of a fundamental cornerstones of our way forward with this thinking. We actually have a program called Data Driven City for Citizens, where we are really looking at how we can use the data to better improve the everyday life of our citizens, and how that can be done in a way that even those who are in the most vulnerable position can be benefiting from the technology in a new way. And we think that the city is playing a key role in this digital transformation. At the same time, we're working very closely with a number of partners, working with a number of companies. The last program we had more than 400 companies participating in more than 200 projects with us. So we've been working as an ecosystem way. And of course, our university and research institutions have been an elementary part of that, and also involving the citizens how they are kind of bringing that ideas and working together with us. So Tampere Metaverse is something where we see our next phase of developing the smart city with the core elements of building a smart and sustainable future for both residents and businesses alike. And we're actually doing it right now in the form of 5 flagships of transformation. And then we'll get the hands-on experience how the metaverse actually is transforming our city and what it means for the future. So our 5 flagship programs, they come from how to use the data for businesses in a better way in a city where businesses are coming to look for new new areas of utilizing their technologies, using data, artificial intelligence, automation on what they do. And we are trying to help.
If you are moving the slide, we are not seeing the slide moving.
So
if you could please, or the technical team can help. It's also not on the slide mode. Thank you.
Okay, I have. See if I can do something about that.
Yeah, it moved. Yeah.
We were here.
Okay. We can put a slide mode. If it's not too complicated, that's fine. But otherwise, please move on. Go ahead.
And let's hope that it changes the slides as well.
Yeah.
So this is the 5 flagship program we are talking about. The second one is about our international inclusive city, where we are welcoming the international people around the world to come and live in our city, harnessing diversity and making sure the data can be put in place to help people to be at home. The third area is around youth, youth, helping them in schools. The fourth one is really in the core of the using digital twins around putting a safe pedestrian city in place and all the experiences that you can get. And the fifth one is around the sustainable city, where we talk about how we can move things around in a way, including putting a total digital twin map of the city and putting all the different ways of moving around, using drones, using different aspects of the mobility into our city. And now just checking, did my slide change now?
No.
Okay, then I'll have to go back and probably go from here.
Yep.
Yep. So when we are looking into the future, we're looking at something which we anticipate of being a cognitive city, where actually everything is in the metaverse, where the human and objects are put into digital twins, where all the data can be gathered so from the different parts of the city that we get all the possible sensors, all the possible ways of capturing the information into our sort of thinking of the metaverse city, where the digital twins are playing a key part of that. And where we see that our sort of a whole mindset of how we are building different things goes through this idea that there's a cognitive city brain, which actually helps us then to manage the city in a totally new way. And looking into that, we are looking also at new technologies which can help us to do that. And many of those technologies have already been mentioned today. So we have technologies like the short-term version of that, where we have what we are doing already right now. Maybe in the medium term, we're talking about more advanced digital twin technologies. We're talking about quantum computing, or we're talking about 6G plus, and other more maybe things that can just be imagined where they are. And in the long term, there will be technologies we don't know yet, how they are going to change our lives. But all this will be part of our metaverse vision going forward. Now, if we turn into the specific topic of today and start thinking about, okay, what does it mean for our cities? Did the slide change now?
No.
Nope, I have to go again back. Sorry about this. This somehow is proving to be a little bit more complicated than I thought. So, so if you think about the how we move from a recovery in a disaster situation from stage A to stage B and stage C, how we can first of all, know things better, how we go deeper into understanding, raising the awareness of what happens in the situations and how we can do this, understanding situation better, and then continue to the plan situation where we are looking at how we can do the planning better, how we can do the risk analysis, the diagnosis skills and strategies, planning policies and responses better, and then how we actually implement those things when we are happening to different areas. I mean, our probably biggest threats have been more in the nature of economic disaster. So when you have situations where certain industries are collapsing or changing totally, than just looking at the natural environment. But we have our problems with our floods. We have problems with our storms, especially now with the changing environment. And that is something where we do need to think about how we do things better and how we actually go through all these stages in a better way going forward. And if you think of the element of the metaverse and all this that we have been talking about, so a few thoughts about how we see this actually changing the situation from our point of view. So we see definitely that there are elements in all things that we do. If you look at the key features on metaverse, which are using digital twins, using XR, using the generative AI, using connectivity, all those elements will be vital when we look at how we can also improve the situation and recovery, the disaster events.
Teppo, you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. So if you have digital twins, they will actually enable the tracking and management of the situation in the disaster event. And not only talking about digital twins of our built environment, but we're also looking at now we have very much information about non-built environments. So the nature environment already in our databases. So digital twin are twins of non-built environment. And that helps us to understand much better where we are looking at. So looking at XR. So now we're really into looking at how we can improve the use of different types of extended reality. So AR, VR, XR type of things with new technologies where the connectivity plays a key vital role, and where the connectivity is based on different elements of it. So it's both sort of a fiber underground, it's 5G plus 6G going above ground. And that is one of the key things we need to make sure that operate in all circumstances. Use of drones and autonomous vehicles and devices will be then based on those existing models. And using generative AI will help in developing the on-time responses. And again, the simulation models can be really built for different scenarios when you use ubiquitous data that comes from different sources and different sensors. Also, we believe that in the future, the on-time real data can also come from crowdsourcing. So people are actually submitting the data back to us, updating our digital twin all the time. So there's a lot of opportunities we see and a lot of technologies that are developing, as we heard in the previous speakers, that will be helping us better manage our situation going forward. So with this, I will leave the floor and thank you for your interest and happy to take any questions on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Teppo. It's fascinating to see how cities are thinking forward 20, 30 years from now. So if you could just unshare the screen, and then I would, we have lots of questions coming from the floor. I don't know if Dr. Kim is still around. If she is, I would like to start with her, even though she was not in our session, but the questions, the number of questions belonging to her. This is, hi.
I'm still here.
Very good, thank you.
Actually, I suppose my colleagues told me I can stay only 30 minutes and focus on other work, but there's a lot of cases I keep writing and I keep answering, so I'm still staying here.
Very good, thank you. It is fantastic. I think there are 3 questions which I'll combine. One of them is really about your capacity building programs.
Yes.
Mostly WMO capacity building is directed at government actors and it doesn't lead to private sector or community to the degree that we know from outside. So the question is that, are there training available for those who are outside the government? Number 2, for El Nino, is there anything specific being planned considering there are droughts being predicted? Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for the raising that question. I'd like to answer other question as well related to the capacity building, because I saw many questions focus on the community, and I shared some of our example, which very recently this year, we had the community training, just visit the community and having the training with the community leaders, and also focus on disaster managers with the stakeholders. So we had a couple of good examples in Malawi and Costa Rica. I just shared that examples in the Q&A session with a link of the slide presentation with a video. So there are many things happening, not just focus on national hydrological meteorological services, but we try to make a broad way to reach out to the community, because it was very important, and we see the gaps between if we provide, national services provide warning and information, but it was not reach out to the community. People didn't aware of it. People was not aware of it. It was not reached out them, or even though they heard that information, they don't know what to do. And they don't know where is the vulnerable area, where is the dangerous places, and where to go. So those we have been supporting them. And then the other question about throughout the training, that we do not have a focus on just the 2023 or 2024 training, but we do have a general training for hydrology, which I just put it, hydrology and water resources capacity building program. That is embedded, but I cannot say there is a specific program only focused on this year is not. But if the member requested and others are requested, it is still possible. And we also have many open training sessions for everyone. If it's needed, we can host some of the training like that. So I just shared the link. I can share again in this chat that there is a help desk. If you have any specific requested, you can use our help desk, and not only our teams, but also we do have a support-based partner who are willing to support everyone as much as possible. So please use the help desk. If you have any specific requests, we try to fulfill most of your requests. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. It's indeed very important that we scale it further down and again use technology for that. I would now come to Cameron. Cameron, the use of drones is increasing for disaster response. And now, when I look at other domains, such as conflict, drones are being used in thousands. When I use it entertainment, drones are still used in thousands, simulated drones. But when I go to a disaster site, it's still ones and twos. What is the main constraint of scaling drone usage in the disaster response domain? Is it the cost? Is it the regulation? Is it lack of manpower or human resources to use it? How would this go to scale? Thank you.
Thanks. That's a great question. And I think primarily the answer has been when we're dealing with disaster and disaster response, we're dealing with a community that has a very keen working knowledge of safety. And there's a lot of other procedures and processes that are happening. So you've got multiple groups that might be responding into an area and who aren't necessarily trained in drones, because the adoption of it, the use cases, the data, all of that just is starting to come to fruition. And now you're talking about introducing, aircraft, albeit small aircraft, into the air. And so there's this whole new safety, aspect of it. There's this whole new, immense amount of data coming into it. And so I think a bunch of it has been, well, wait a minute, that's just like an overwhelming, like we get all the opportunity and all the good it can do, but it's a big process to integrate into an already very complicated situation with multiple players. So I think that's one aspect of it. Second, certainly is budget. When you're looking in areas of conflict, the unfortunate ROI of drones compared to the typical type of ordnance or reconnaissance costs, drones just immediately provide a return. And so we're seeing them being utilized very quickly. The other aspect is training, right? So like this is a whole new discipline that's being entered into for things like search and rescue or disaster response. So along with that process and workflow, now you've got to train all these people up, but it's starting to happen quite quickly, and the ROI in disaster response is as big and certainly more important than it is in conflict. So at some point there's going to be a tipping point here where it's like, why don't we have our drones? Why don't we have our data? Why don't we have those types of things? So I think it's just a matter of prudent adoption.
Thank you. So I can see the future of drones is bright. Elena, there's a question from the floor as to how can other actors get involved in this interesting AI for natural disaster management, work, focus grouping, working. I want to acknowledge the presence of Monica Kuglish, who is also on the floor. Thank you, Elena.
Yes, how to get involved. This is very simple, and we are very happy to have your contribution, your ideas. I think that we have posted in the chat the link. I'm not very sure because this is something that I cannot do. I cannot post in the chat to everyone the link to the focus group. So I may ask, please, some of the group who's organizing to do this. There is detailed information on how to join, on how to participate, and we are very much looking forward to having you on board and following, actually receiving your feedback. This is what the focus group is here for, actually, to bridge the different the community, from scientists to stakeholders to interested bodies. So we are very much looking forward to have you on board. So yes, nowadays I believe it should be.
Yes. Maithili has put in the chat.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, thank you, Elena.
Thank you.
I'll come back to Teppo, and Teppo, one of the questions being asked is that, can we use metaverse or digital twin for scenario planning? Has it been done in a disaster situation, or based upon your experience, is it a possibility? Thank you.
I think it's definitely a possibility. We haven't done that. I'm not aware of that being done yet, but it might have been done somewhere else. But I definitely see that there's an opportunity to do that. And the more developed digital twins we get, the more they would be able to respond to situations. We've been doing a different type of exercises where we have been using digital twin for mass events type of things, and how mass events and security and safety around mass events can be done. So that is an area we have been using that, but not specifically on disaster. But I think that they definitely could be and should be done.
Thank you. I'll now turn to Mohammed. Mohammed, your model is quite interesting. Now, do you actually go and do a pre-disaster assessment before, or you can, right now, do we have enough information from various satellite images so that regardless of where the disaster is happening, you can get enough information to assess in a post-disaster situation? Or should cities and communities start to have some sort of a baseline setup so that they can do the assessment later? Thank you.
That's an excellent question. So for any kind of disaster that is predicted to happen, and even in some cases, like there is no forecast, we can actually have some sort of base map information of a certain region that we can prepare based on the satellite imagery and our model to have a risk mapping for that region, even before there is any warning for a disaster. And that's the idea, that we could use that information to better prepare for the disaster. And the post-disaster assessment part is only for like one way of evaluation of our model, like how our model actually works, like the buildings that we thought have high risk or the regions that we thought are high risk, whether they get affected like that. But yeah, it is indeed possible to have theoretically, it's possible to have a map like for the entire world, but there is of course practical limitations such as availability of high resolution imagery. There are still some regions where we don't have high resolution imagery, and even if we have them, that's pretty expensive to collect that data or acquire that data. So those are the challenges that we need and that we currently have, and we definitely need more participation and engagement and support from government agencies as well as nonprofits to mitigate that.
Thank you, Mohammed, for that. Thank you, Nasir, for that excellent answer. I'll now come to Mr. Amarnath. Amarnath, we have seen this range of technologies, absolutely fascinating. Drones and AI and metaverse. What are the challenges of implementing this in developing country context? Do you think they would be even more useful because of the absence of let's say the baseline in some countries, or it would be less possibility of scaling it up to developing countries? Based upon your experience, what would be your take on that?
Thanks, Murli, for that important question. I would say there are a couple of barriers to that. One is many of these advanced technologies do come with extensive need of huge data sets. If we look at machine learning, AI tools, they do need a good training samples. And often in least developing countries or highly vulnerable drought-prone regions, you don't have a lot of data sets. So in developed countries, it's quite easy to develop certain models and situations. Unlike this is the barrier, critical barrier. And I think over some of these gaps have been filled through remote sensing data, like some of the panelists have already spoken about that. I would also see that there is, with all the global commitments, increasing new financing inputs are happening. That will certainly help data infrastructure, developing, like if you see many of the countries still do not have early warning information for all the hazards, except there are few heat waves and agriculture related information. So going forward, I think as we look at these technologies, we need to also talk about what are the current limitations we have in many countries, particularly the vulnerable regions. And we need to tailor to those and simplify the technology as a first-hand user of those tools. And as they start practicing and adapting to this solution, you could start getting into more advanced solutions that will certainly leverage these potential. And I think early warning for all is one such initiative that will certainly fill that gaps going forward with both by the public and the private sectors in the years to come. Yeah.
Thank you, Giriraj. Indeed, the availability of data and even more so the accessibility of data. Some of the data is in physical form, and often the legislation or even the culture of data sharing is not there in many places, which is a huge problem I have noticed. So with that, I'm coming to the end of the allocated time. I want to thank all the speakers who contributed so richly to this session and made that time available on the day of disaster risk reduction, close to 2 hours of their time. I can still see that there are more than 300 participants staying with us, which is absolutely fascinating that 90% of the people are still with us. And I can see that my good friend Bilal Jamus is also here. So I'll hand it back to Nakul to conclude the session. And thank you all. Thank you, speaker. Thank you, participants. Back to you, Nakul.
Thank you, Dr. Murli. That was indeed an enriching discussion, and very happy to see all the amazing work that is being done in this space with the help of these new age technologies. And once again, I would like to thank you, Dr. Murli, for moderating the session and leading us through these discussions. Now we come to the final part of the webinar. And for this, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Bilal Jamusi, Deputy Director, Telecommunications Standardization Bureau of ITU. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening to our colleagues joining us from around the world. for this event. I'm very pleased to welcome you to the 33rd episode of the Digital Transformation webinar series. Today, October 13th, is the International Day for Disaster Reduction. So it's only fitting for our session to explore disaster risk reduction in the digital transformation age. I would like to thank the co-organizers of this webinar, the World Meteorological Organization, WMO, and the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, UNCCD, CCD. And in this webinar, we were joined by leading experts in the field of disaster management who shared strategies for leveraging innovative technologies to fill knowledge gaps and improve decision-making, from artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things to digital twins and even the metaverse. We are experiencing unprecedented effects of climate change and extreme weather events. Last year, weather disasters alone cost the world nearly $360 billion. The frequency and severity of tsunamis, wildfires, heat waves, and other natural hazards continue to increase, not to mention the devastating effects of epidemics and pandemics. Embracing innovation will be key to mitigating the impact of these tumultuous events. Digital technologies can equip meteorological agencies to better monitor Earth systems, detect natural hazards, and to quickly identify those in need of assistance. As the United Nations Agency for Information and Communication Technologies, the ITU is uniquely placed to bring together the right stakeholders to address the responsible application of digital technologies in disaster risk reduction. One way ITU is working on this, together with partner agencies across the UN system, is in the Early Warning for All initiative, which aims to ensure everyone in the world is covered by early warning systems for weather, water, or climate hazards by 2027. The ITU Focus Group on AI for Natural Disaster Management, in partnership with WMO and the UN Environment, also works on best practices in the use of AI for disaster management, addressing crucial challenges in data collection and management, geospatial modeling, and the use of AI to enhance communication capabilities. The opportunity for digital technologies to improve disaster risk reduction is immense. Artificial intelligence can make sense of vast amounts of historic and real-time data collected through advanced sensors, helping us make evidence-based decisions. They can also enhance our ability to predict hazardous events in the future or avoid disastrous courses of action by identifying patterns of historical data. Immersive technologies even allow us to simulate disasters. Digital twins are digital versions of objects or systems, which we can use to analyze how a natural hazard will affect an environment or community in complex and interconnected ways. With these systems, we can even understand how certain decisions might impact the outcome of a disaster scenario. Finally, digital transformation can help us disseminate and share crucial disaster risk knowledge. This knowledge has been collected over centuries. It exists in various forms and in many communities, from geological databases to local or indigenous knowledge systems. The metaverse can even help people train for a scenario or build empathy for those whose homes have been made inhabitable by disaster. These are powerful capabilities, but they also raise serious concerns. We must remain vigilant to ensure the use of digital systems does not harm or marginalize underrepresented groups. It's a critical domain in a critical domain, such as a disaster event, such errors could mean life or death. Today, we were joined by important voices who have shared their expertise and shed lights on these complex topics to successfully contribute to protecting the planet and its people. I hope that you are able to continue this important dialogue together with important partners to ensure a resilient future for all. On behalf of ITU, thank you for joining this important discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Bilal Jonesy, for your wonderful closing remarks. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our distinguished panelists for once again taking us through these exciting discussions, which we believe will be the cornerstone for future standards work on this topic. And before we conclude this episode, just one final remark from my end. Please note that the ITU Digital Transformation webinar series will continue to hold more episodes, and I would like to invite you to join the future sessions on this topic. With that, thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.